Is Miss Sue Rogan. Oh yeah, thank you, Daniel. So our guest speaker today is Miss Sue Rogan. She's the director of strategic partnerships at Cash Campaign Maryland. And today, if any of you guys have any questions, we're gonna ask her a bunch of questions. She's gonna answer your questions. So for our first starting out, we wanted to ask you about what you do for your job. Like, what are your day-to-day activities? What do you do at the Cash Campaign?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me today and for everybody spending some time here. I work with the Cash Campaign. Again, that stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope. So it's a nonprofit organization, and we work to provide different programs or services to help people build their financial well-being. So just a little bit about the organization overall is we provide free tax preparation. So if people file their taxes and if they earn under $57,000 a year, they can have their taxes prepared for free by us or our partners. We also have financial education. We have a website that's www.mdcashacademy.org because we know it's hard to learn about money. It's awesome that you guys are doing what you're doing this summer with the young people to help them understand how to manage finances. And we provide free classes so that people can come to them and learn anything about what they want, whether it's credit, whether buying a car like we're talking about today, or creating a spending plan. So just providing those classes so that people have a place to come learn about money. And we also have financial coaching programs where someone can work one-on-one with a coach to set financial goals and to create the steps that they need to reach those goals. So again, we provide different programs and services to really help people build their financial health or to manage their money in ways that's really helpful to them. So my day-to-day job as the director of strategic partnerships, my role is to go out and go talk to other organizations who are doing this work across Maryland and having them be a cash partner. So we have over 50, 60 different agencies that work with us to provide these classes or to provide the tax preparation. And so I help them either develop the content for their classes. They list them on Cash Academy. I help them advertise it. So it's really to provide the other organizations who are our partners with what they need to do their jobs.
I have a question. What was sort of the inspiration behind the campaign?
Good question. So we got started. It had been before that there was Maryland Cash and Baltimore Cash. Both started around 2008, 2009. And the real reason they thought they needed to exist was to help connect initially the tax preparation sites. So there were different organizations, nonprofits typically across Maryland, who are providing the tax preparation services, but it was sort of very hodgepodge, with what they were doing, what services they were providing, and the training that they were getting, and really actually the money they were getting to do it too. So Maryland Cash came around and connected all of the different tax preparation sites and actually was able to get a grant from the IRS for all of them. So we get the money from the IRS, we then give it to them so they can do their tax preparation services, and we provide training to their staff who are doing that. So we really kind of wanted to coordinate what was happening in Maryland and then start to grow it. So while we started with tax prep, around 2009, we started the Cash Academy because the same thing with tax preparation we were seeing with financial education. It was very sporadic. It wasn't consistent. It didn't have the highest level of quality of classes happening. So we created the Cash Academy that from the individual person's perspective is one place to go look for a class that is current, it's up to date, and it's not selling any products or services. Typically, we would see that some for-profit companies would provide financial education classes, but they were then selling, whether it was an investment or different products, they were selling things in those classes. What we wanted to see was really non-biased information being given out to people. So we created a Cash Academy so that people can find that place where they need to go learn the content that they want. We check out all the educators, we check out all the curriculum. And then from our partner side, again, with my role, I've developed financial education content using federal government resources or other nonprofit unbiased resources that we then give out to our partners and say, hey, do you want a credit class? Here's the content that you can use to teach it. We'll help teach you how to teach it, and so we were really trying to increase the quality of financial education in Maryland. And so by doing the different work that we're doing, that's what we focus on. So that was sort of our point in coming together and becoming an organization. We then merged Baltimore Cash and Maryland Cash together to really help the field. It's called financial capability, which I know is kind of a term, like what does that mean? But organizations that are trying to help people build their financial health. We are sort of their, if you will, like an umbrella organization. So we give them the tools and even the systems that they need to do their work. So we're really trying to increase the amount of organizations that provide these financial education or coaching or tax prep services.
I have a follow-up question. Who's your typical client when it comes to financial education? Are you in any way targeting younger people like high schoolers, or is it primarily just adults?
So really, another really good question. In the past, I would say we've typically really focused on adults. And in the last year, though, we have had opportunities and have really increased our work around young people. So I've been working to change the financial education content for foster youth. So from 14 to 21, it had been developed to be delivered in person. Right before COVID hit, they trained all these trainers on it across the country, and then everything shut down. So they asked us to help them change it to virtual delivery. So we've done that for 8 different modules that exist, changing all of the in-person activities and content to virtual. And then we also this summer have Bank of America youth leaders who may be on this call as well. They were going to join us, and they are helping us change our curriculum, focusing on adults to really be more engaging and interesting for younger people. And they're going to have a youth symposium in August where they're going to have different workshops around investing, student loans, and things that really matter and are of relevance now to younger people. So to answer you, we had focused on adults, but we're sort of shifting our audience as well now.
And within your financial education program, do you ever address like car shopping basics or health insurance in any way?
We do. We have a content that's called Getting and Keeping Your Ride on the Road that is everything around buying a car, whether you decide to lease it or buy a new car, used car, how to get lending for it, how to really be that smart consumer when you're shopping for it, as well as understanding car insurance and even maintaining the car. Because sometimes I think that some financial education content stops and it's wonderful, but it just stops at buying that car. But what consumers need to also know about is how do you maintain that car in a way that's going to cost you less money than it would if you don't maintain it well. And some of this comes from my background of being a consumer protection investigator with Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection for many years, where I investigated consumer complaints about car buying. And it's not as easy as you would think to be able to just go into a dealer, buy a car and walk out. There's a lot of steps and a lot of things to think about. So I want to make sure that it's one of the largest purchases you'll make in your life, so you want to make sure that you're getting the best deal and that you're getting a credible deal that is not taking advantage of you.
Do you have any advice for sort of the typical high schooler when it comes to searching for a car, negotiating with parents and all that sort of thing?
I actually vividly remember my first car, which was a terrible car, but it gave me the freedom and I could afford it. So I went ahead and got it. But I think some of the things that I would really encourage high schoolers to think about is, number one, start doing your research. What kind of car? And parents may have a different perspective on what kind of car than you may have. In terms of teenagers and I wanted a very cool looking car, and they may not be the safest car or the most affordable car. And that may be what parents' kind of perspective is. I want something that's safe for my child and something that's affordable. So doing research on what car do you want? I'm actually sort of a personal fan of I think you need to love your car. Really love your car, not just get me from point A to point B, but you get out to the street and you're like, yeah, that's my car, so you have to have some excitement about it, I feel. So finding something that you're excited about, but then going on the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website, along with maybe Consumer Reports, so that you can look at the reliability and the safety aspects of the car. They do testing on the airbags and crashes and figuring out literally which cars have better ratings for safety. So trying to make sure you're considering that. And then also research the cost for repairs. Even for my daughter, I can remember we negotiated down to a Mazda 6, several years ago when she wanted to get a car. I wanted the safety, she wanted the coolness, affordability. What we failed to look at though is what were the cost of replacing the tires on that Mazda 6? Unknown to me, these were very special tires on that stinking car, and they were very expensive to replace. Now, it was on her because she had to pay for it, but thinking about what it will cost to repair it before you buy it can save you some dollars down the road versus having to replace very expensive tires. So doing the research is really important on what type of car and having a little flexibility, like pick 2 or 3 so that, because if you're going to look at a used car that may be more affordable, you might not find that specific car that you really want as a used car with an affordable price. So pick 2 or 3, that would be an option that would incorporate all those factors that you're looking at, right? The coolness, the safety, the reliability, the insurance cost for it. And then trying to figure out where you want to buy it is a whole nother aspect, right? Do you want to go to a car dealer? Do you want to buy from an individual? Are you buying from a national car dealer that's, representing Ford or whoever, or an independent car dealer that has multiple different brands? And being able to make sure that you can know the price differences between them, as well as any warranties that are going to come with it or not. Buying in Maryland will give people more of a consumer protection than it does buying in Virginia. And buying in Virginia is fine as long as you know all that you're doing, because you will not be protected by Maryland laws when you buy in Virginia. So that's sort of a long time of me talking on that, but I'm happy to talk about any more of those pieces if you want.
So when it comes to health insurance, what's your typical, if I were in your educational session, what's your typical run through for adults or even students?
So we start with, and we do have a class on overall insurance. So it's going to cover car insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, and the different types, again, car insurance and other ones. So it covers sort of the overall aspect of insurance in general. And the main point of insurance, it's sort of frustrating in a way to spend money almost thinking that something negative is going to happen because then you're covered, right? But if you do not have insurance, there is so much risk financially. So in specific terms about health insurance, one of the things we really point out is, and I literally have one of my bills from health insurance. My daughter had many accidents from ninth grade through the first year of college. It was like every single year, something major happened to her. And so one year she broke her arm snowboarding. And so what I have is an actual statement of how much insurance paid for that operation to fix her arm, hospital stay, ambulance, all of that. And it was over $10,000. And so what I try to point out is we had insurance that covered and paid for this $10,000. If someone does not have health insurance, they then are responsible to pay that $10,000. So the biggest thing I start out with is make sure wherever you are in life, right now, perhaps you're insured by your parents or their employer. But as you get older and you're not going to be able to be on your parents' policies, if you are, you really need to make sure you have some type of health insurance because it is so expensive to have procedures done. So I want to make sure that the major point is make sure you're insured, make sure you have that coverage. Now, other things to look at in terms of health insurance is what type of insurance? Is it going to cover dental care, which a lot of policies do not? So you may need another policy to cover dental care. Things happen to teeth, it just does, and it's expensive. So as you grow and get older and are looking at employers, one of the things you're looking for at your job is what kind of insurance do they have? Is it minimal? Are you paying all of it? Are they paying part of it? You want to make sure that you have the coverage to manage your risks, but you also want to see how much money you're paying for that insurance and compare and pick the one that's the best.
So for kids that are going to college like myself, obviously in about 4 years, I need to sort of transition to being far more independent than I am right now. How do people sort of make that sort of transition from having health insurance underneath their parents or car insurance underneath their parents to something more independent for themselves?
So really good point. One of the things to think about as you're transitioning from college to employment is making sure that you're looking at a job that includes these as benefits. Some companies don't offer these as benefits. And if they do not, is the income from that job going to be enough to help you pay for private insurance on your own versus going with a company that provides this as a benefit? So as you go into interviews with companies, you certainly don't start out with questions about insurance. You start out with questions about the role you're going to be in that employer. Is it a good fit for you? Are you going to be able to grow with this company? What are the terms? What's the income? But down, once you get a little closer to them offering you the job, that's when you start the questions about what are the benefits involved and what is the health insurance. So a lot of times what employers are doing now is perhaps not offering full coverage or paying the full amount of the insurance coverage, but they offer a high deductible insurance plan where they may put some money into an account that you could draw out of as you incur medical expenses. So knowing the difference between just fully being covered by an insurance policy versus a high deductible insurance plan is something really important to take a look at.
Interesting. Do we have any questions in the chat?
I don't see any in the chat, but Daniel, if you wanted to ask, should we ask more about the car, go back to car insurance or car shopping?
I guess
If
so.
anybody has questions on health insurance?
I guess so.
Sure. So the other question that we had for car shopping was, what are the benefits of new, old, or cars sold by independent or non-institutional sellers? Oh, I just got a question about cars. So yeah, that's the question.
Okay, so if we can, we'll start with new versus used, and then we can start with where to buy them from. So new versus used, pros and cons to both. So new, of course, you're going to get much more of a longer warranty because it's brand new. But you may have seen statistics that the minute you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, you've lost value immediately. So used cars can be a really good option, particularly for a young person who may not have either the $30,000 for a new car or want to borrow that much for a new car. So it's worth looking at used cars. But if you look at a used car, because now you've got somebody else who owned it for a while first, some really important things to consider are, if you're going to buy it from an individual, that's going to be the lowest cost to buy a used car. Because if you buy it from a dealer, whether an independent dealer or a major manufacturer dealer, they are a business. They have to make some money from this deal. If you're buying it from an individual, you're cutting out that kind of cost. So you're going to get a lower price buying from an individual. But consumer protection laws do not cover a consumer to consumer purchase. So if you buy a car from an individual and there's something major wrong with it after you bought it, that's too bad. You're stuck with it. So you're not going to have the availability to go back and say, hey, you scammed me by not telling me what was wrong with this car, as you might with a car dealer, because they are covered under consumer protection laws. An individual is not. So some strategies if you want to buy from an individual, again, because it'll be the lowest price for you, is number one, check this different organizations, but one in particular like Carfax compiles records on cars. So if you run a report, it costs about $25. Say on Carfax's website, you get the what's called the VIN number, that very long number that's sketched into the underneath the windshield. You run the VIN number in this website, then it can come up with either nothing has happened to it, or it may come up with, oh wow, this car was totaled in North Carolina and now it's up here in Maryland. And it could be like, okay, hold on a second, I didn't know about that. I might not want it. So you're trying to check to see what records are publicly available. That's what this website does, is it puts together all the insurance records, all the records from the motor vehicle administrations into one website about that car. So it's kind of a way to check out that car before you're going to look at it. You always want to make sure that you're actually talking to the individual that owns that car. So how do you know that? You know it because when you go to look at the car, which you always have to do, never buy a car online without seeing it, test driving it, and all that. So you go to the person's home or a parking lot that's kind of an open public place, so it's safe. You ask to see that person's driver's license. You ask to see the registration of the car. And then you may even ask to see a repair order. And you're checking the name to make sure it is the same name through all of those records. Because I can tell you some of the cases I investigated were the individual and their driver's license had a very different name from the registration of the car. And they actually didn't even own the car. So they had no right to sell that car. So the person actually gave this person money for that car and then could not get a title for it because they never ever owned it. So it's important that the name matches on all of the documents that you're looking at. Then you're going to ask that person if they've really owned this car. And I do with I've sold all my cars to an individual because I make more money when I'm selling my cars to an individual. But I have all the maintenance records of what I've done to this car, all the oil changes, all the repairs, all the brake jobs. And I literally show the person I'm selling my car to, here's everything I've done on my car. So they can see that I maintained it properly and that it's in good shape. So you as a consumer looking for one would ask the same of someone selling the car. Let me see all the repair orders, what's been done on this car. Maybe a red flag would be if it's been a transmission repair, because that could be expensive if it wasn't done properly or may need to be done again. Then you're also going to ask this person, individual you want to buy from, can I have my mechanic take a look at this car? Don't ever buy a used car from an individual without having a mechanic look at it, because you may not know, unless you're really good at mechanics, what could be wrong with this car. So make sure and pay the mechanic to do it. Give them $50 or whatever they charge for an hour's worth of looking at the car, because then they will tell you, yes, this car has been well maintained. It looks good. I don't see any major problems with it. Or here's some red flags, and walk away from this car, which could save you thousands of dollars. So that's some tips if you're going to buy it from an individual, which is, again, the best price for buying. But if you're going to buy from an independent car dealer, so one that has multiple different lines of cars, used cars in their lot, some of the same things apply, because from their perspective, always kind of look at what is the other person trying to get. They're trying to get money from you, right? It's your hard-earned dollars, and you want to make sure it's going to something that is going to really be a good car. So the same thing applies in terms of, let me see all the documentation behind this car. Now, they may not have repair records because they bought it off of auction or something like that. So they likely won't have that, but they will have a registration. And you want to check the complaint records on this independent dealer through the consumer protection agencies, whether it's the Maryland Attorney General or Howard County and Montgomery County in Maryland have their own consumer protection agencies. So go online, check the complaint records, because I can tell you, for some independent as well as major dealers, you might see that there's one complaint. Okay, that may not be that many, but if you see one that has 300 complaints, that's a little bit of a concern that maybe this car dealer is selling cars that are, they've been wrecked, they got them at auction, they never really checked it out, but they're not handling their sales or their business in a consumer-friendly way if they have that many complaints. So you're always checking complaint records before you buy. And then you're also, particularly with independent shop, have a mechanic look at the car again, just to make sure you're not walking into a trap with a car that's going to have thousands of dollars of repairs. If you're going to buy from a major dealer, you're going to get more of a warranty, which is, helpful if something goes wrong, but some of the same principles apply. Check complaint records to make sure that they deal with consumers in an honest and reputable way. Make sure you test drive that car. And in Maryland, they have to have what's called the Federal Trade Commission's sticker on there about what is the warranty for that used car. So I investigated a dealer one time that did not have one of those stickers, which is required by federal law. And it's meant to help the consumer have the information they need to know before buying this car. They didn't have one sticker on one used car. So of course we fined them and they had to change their practice. But as a consumer, you are looking for that Federal Trade Commission sticker that gives you information about the car, a used car, when you're buying it from a dealer. So that's just some information on, used versus new. It can be a better price used cars, but making sure that you are protecting your dollars when you're making that purchase and doing all those steps that we talked about. Were there any questions on some of those steps to take when you're looking to buy a new or used car?
I didn't get any about that specifically, but we got a question in the chat from a participant that says, do you have any car recommendations? So I think they mean like models or buying a car.
So it really depends. It's an individual thing. And again, you got to fall in love with it. So when you're looking at cars and trying to decide, first of all, just look around, right? Look in your neighborhood, look where you're walking and see like what kind of cars you think are cool looking. But go on cars.com website and just start scrolling through them and see which ones, are appealing to you, first of all, because again, I'm a big fan of like, you got to love your car. But you may love a car that is unreliable or that gets bad reviews for safety. And that way you need to kind of change your mindset a little bit and be like, yeah, okay, that one's not safe. It's going to cost me a lot of money to keep it up. I'm not going to go with that one. So find again what you think is interesting, but doing the research on NHTSA, it's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It's literally NHTSA, to find the safety records, because again, they do the testing on the crashes on the side, they do the frontal crashes and stuff. The Consumer Reports has different reviews on a lot around reliability. And Consumer Reports is a source of information and testing of products where they don't accept money from the manufacturers of these products. So while they may test a Ford, they're not taking any money from Ford. So they're independent and their testing is therefore unbiased because they're not taking money from the manufacturer. So looking at their reliability, and they also have really good information on cost of repairs. The other sites, cars.com, Kelley Blue Book, they all have a wealth of information about the different types of cars out there in terms of cost to the consumer to operate the car. And then looking, of course, at what, gas mileage is and what it's going to cost you down the road is really important, because you don't, again, get into a car and then realize you have to spend thousands of dollars to keep that car going. So while I don't necessarily recommend a particular car, because you have to do your own research for it, it is important to make sure that you really take the time to do that and that you talk to other people about their experiences. One other resource is going to a mechanic in your neighborhood and ask them. I've gone a couple of times, and while I didn't always agree with my mechanic because maybe I wanted something, they were like, oh, you don't want that. I bought a Ford Expedition many years ago, and there's an acronym that I got really annoyed at, is that Ford stands for Found on the Road Dead, because the mechanic didn't like the reliability of the Ford Expedition. And I was like, come on, I wanted it because I had many, teenagers in the car and everything, and I wanted the safety because it's big. So I went ahead and bought it anyway. But really using a mechanic and their opinions, because they see cars all the time that are broken. So there can often be a really good source of reliable, unbiased information on which cars to avoid.
Okay, thank you. I got another one in the chat that says, what would be the best way to get a good insurance deal for a new driver?
Really important, because boy, insurance is a really big cost for young drivers. So trying to see if it's possible to get on perhaps your parents' or caregivers' policy will be less expensive than getting a policy, more than likely, on your own. But it's important to shop around. And what's really fun is that the Maryland Insurance Administration, this is a state government agency that regulates insurance companies, all the insurance companies, whether they're providing car insurance, home, renters, whatever. They actually have a document on their website where they compare the cost that they've asked different companies to give them on car insurance, health insurance, whatever it is. So you can go on their website and you can take a look at least 10 to 12, I think even more, companies that have given the Insurance Administration information on their rates. You can, and it is a wide difference. It's not pennies. It's like hundreds of dollars difference in the policies that they offer. So one thing to really look at as well is, what's your deductible going to be? And I think you may have talked about deductibles this morning, but just to sort of reiterate that when you have a higher deductible, or the amount of money that you're willing to pay when something happens, your insurance rates will go down, because your cost, your liability or your risk is higher. So the standard deductible is around $250 for a policy. So If you have a car accident that's your fault or something happens to your car, literally I had a limb fall on my car and tear out my windshield. So the deductible, the person that they have to pay is $250. Then the insurance company kicks in the rest. Now, if you go up to a $500 deductible, you will pay less on your policy because you're going to pay $500 before the insurance company kicks in. If you're willing to even go up to $1,000 deductible, you're going to get a lower rate because, again, you're going to pay the first $1,000. The insurance company will pay after that. The only thing to consider with that is if you have the deductible, whatever amount it is, put that money in a savings account. $250, $500, $1,000, whatever your deductible is, make sure that money is sitting somewhere because when something happens to the car, you need that money. And if you don't have it and you decided to do the higher deductible, the $1,000 deductible, because you wanted to save money on your insurance policy, which is totally fine. If you don't have that $1,000 right there, that could mean debt, or it could mean that you can't use your car until you can come up with that $1,000 because you have to pay that first before the insurance company will kick in. So deductibles are a good way to lower insurance cost for young drivers, but you need to make sure you're willing to pay that should something happen to the car. Another thing, most insurance companies will give a discount if the young person has good grades at school. So that is an incentive to get good grades in school because you can lower your insurance. So looking at different incentives or different companies that offer ways to help younger people get into policies with a lower cost is worth doing because one company may not offer that discount for good grades, but another one will. So maybe go with the one who does because you're getting a discount. Does that help in terms of choosing insurance?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Was there a website that you mentioned to compare insurance?
It's the Maryland Insurance Administration, state government agency.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to get exactly what that was.
Yeah. It's really nice that they take the time, which a lot of government agencies don't, but they take the time to get all the rates from the different insurance companies and put them out there to consumers.
Okay. Thank you. We have one more that says, I hear that newer car models depreciate quicker. Is that true?
It is. It's really frustrating because one of the benefits, there's always pros and cons to everything in life, right? One of the pros of getting a new car is no one else has driven it. No one else has possibly not maintained it because it's brand new. You get a longer warranty with it because it's brand new. However, it's annoying as anything, but the minute you buy that new car and you drive it off the lot, it's lost a couple $1,000s in value. Meaning if you tried to sell it as you are the car owner now, and it's brand new, you try to sell it, you're not going to be able to sell. Well, except in today's world, which is cars have gone crazy in the past 6 months. Generally speaking, you're not going to get the same amount for it that you just paid for it. So if you're going to buy a new car, the biggest point would be that you're going to want it to keep it for a very long time. So you're not worried about this being something that is an asset and something that you want to sell. So buying new, it's also a personal decision. A lot of people are like, I don't want to buy somebody else's problems that may come with a used car. I want a new one that has no problems whatsoever. But again, if you decide to do that, generally speaking, it's going to lose depreciation or it's going to lose value the minute you drive it off the lot. Now, what I was talking about just earlier is in today's post-pandemic world, or if we are in that, it is really interesting to see the values of cars right now and the prices of cars. So the pandemic disrupted the distribution channels for car manufacturers to make cars. So they weren't able to make cars, as many cars as they had in the past. And then other things happened, such as like for rental cars right now. A lot of the rental car companies during the pandemic lost money because nobody was renting cars. So they sold off their cars fairly inexpensively at the time. And now rental cars are almost impossible to get. And if you get one, they're incredibly expensive. So the whole car ownership thing has sort of changed a bit with this pandemic. And right now, it's very hard to get a good deal on a new or used car. So if you can, and you're in the market for the car, hang on maybe another 6 months until things get back to normal. So right now, things are just like homes. Things are more expensive for consumers because there aren't as many available products to buy. But in general, the question was a really good one about a new car. Like the minute you drive it off the lot, it really goes down in value. And then just something else, if I could add about buying a new car, a lot of times people came to consumer protection agencies and would say, I just bought a new car. I got home. Well, I bought it at night. Bought it at night. I got home. I don't like the color of it and I want to take it back. That was one of the most common calls that we had at consumer protection. And so the first thing I would say is, whether new or used, don't buy a car at night. You just can't see all of the aspects that you need to be looking at, so make sure you're buying it during the day when you can see everything. And understand that, generally speaking, when you buy either new or used car and you sign that contract, whether you're paying cash for it or you're getting a loan for it, generally speaking, that car is yours. It's not like a piece of clothing that you can take back to the store because you've got the tags on it and you've checked their return policy and you have your receipt and everything. And by the way, in Maryland, a store can have whatever refund policy it is they want, from no returns whatsoever to 30 days, 6 days, whatever. But in terms of cars, once you have signed that contract, that car is yours. It is not a, hey, car dealer, I changed my mind. I'm bringing the car back to you. Here are the keys. See ya. You can't do that. So you need to make sure you're really looking at the contract very carefully. There are some dealers who have chosen as a business model to say, you know what, if the consumer doesn't like this car within 7 days, they can bring it back to us. And that's their decision as a business to make that policy. But if they say verbally this policy to the person, you need to make sure it's in the contract, because the contract that you sign is the document that is going to govern this transaction. And if the contract does not say you can return that car in 7 days, now we can make an argument that they verbally said something to the consumer, but it's really hard to prove that, right? Because you go to the car dealer and they're going to say, no, I didn't. So what's in the paper is what matters and is what is important. So making sure reading all of the documents when you buy a car and that you're in agreement with it. I mean, it takes a while to read it. I get it, but you got to read it because everything in there is what's holding you to this contract or protecting you, one or the other. And another thing with the contract is a lot of dealers, more of the either independent dealer or the manufacturer type of dealer, they will include certain things printed in their contract, such as a warranty. And aside from the manufacturer's warranty, they may provide an independent warranty for a cost. They may include in there rust coating or underbody protection, and they'll literally print it in their contract. And these can be thousands of dollars that add to the price of the car that you don't have to buy. Just because it's printed on the contract does not mean you have to have it. So if it's printed on the contract and you say, hey, I don't want rust coating protection, take that out. You as the consumer have to raise that to them to say, I'm not paying this. Take this out of the contract because I'm not paying another $1,000 for something I don't want. So don't assume when you see it printed on the contract that it's mandatory for you to buy it.
I have another one in the chat about that. It says, also, do most cars come with 0% APR? I see that a lot on car commercials. What's the best way to take care of your car financially?
Okay, so keep in mind that marketing is meant to separate you from your dollars. So marketing is telling you that you can get this car at 0% interest, which is awesome, right? I mean, getting a car, which I did one time too, literally paying no interest for this loan. Okay, that's great. You really have to read the terms of the contract and make sure that that 0% interest is the entire time of the loan versus the first 6 months or the first year. And if it is just for the first 6 months or the first year, what's the interest rate after that? Because it's going to go up, so making sure that you are getting the best deal for this. If you can get 0% interest for the entire time of the loan, yes, that is perfect. So why would they offer that, right? Because we all know businesses want to make money. Well, the reason they'll offer 0% interest is if sales are down and they need to move some cars, right? They want to sell them. And dealers actually get, sometimes, depending on the dealership, they will be able to get money from a lender when they sell that loan. So it's not the car dealer that's making that loan. They're using a lending company. And the lending company will give the dealer incentives to make so many number of loans. In addition, a car dealer that's coming from a manufacturer, the manufacturer also has incentives to the car dealer for selling a certain number of cars every single month. So first of all, the best time if you're going to buy from a national car dealer is the end of the month, because if they haven't met their quota to get their incentive, they're going to come down on price because they want to sell that car. So the end of the month is the best time to buy. The end of the model year, so like the end of the month in August, because the new models come out in September. The model year before is ending the August of that year. The end of the month of August is another really good time to buy because they want to move those cars from last year's model because they're moving to new year model. And probably the best time to buy a car is the end of December because they're trying to meet their monthly and yearly quotas at that point. So they're willing to negotiate a little bit more because they need to move cars so they get their incentive from the manufacturer. So coming back to the interest rate, it's important to compare interest rates because that's money out of your pocket that you'd rather be going somewhere else. 0 is awesome. Other than that, compare. Go to your bank or credit union. Now, tell them that you just want to know what the interest rate is, not trying to get into a loan at this time, which is what would they give you for an interest rate. Then, of course, check if you're doing from a car dealer, check from the car dealer on what their interest rate is. But it's important as you start to build credit in your adult life that you really work on getting the best credit score you can before you want to get into a loan, because you will pay thousands of dollars difference just in interest if you have a lower credit score versus a high credit score. So getting into the credit building world as a young person is really important. Number one thing is always pay on time. One missed payment in your credit life can ruin your score by 60 or 70 points. Always pay on time, build that credit score to a healthy place before you go to a loan. And then one quick thing about credit, I know this isn't really too much about credit, but just to let you know, every time you go to apply for credit, it's called an inquiry. And too many of those inquiries can lower your credit score, with the exception of when you are shopping for a car, all the different places that you go to ask for what interest rate you can get on this car loan within a 2-week period only count as one inquiry. So as a smart consumer, you're going to want to go to your bank, go check a credit union, check your parents' credit union, check the car dealer. So you have 4 to 5 places that you've gone to compare interest rates on this loan. Then you want to get the lowest interest rate one. But all of those inquiries, if you do it within 2 weeks, so a very short period of time, will only count as one inquiry on your credit. So I know it went a little too much into credit, but I hope that answered the question about the 0% interest.
No, thank you. That's great. I don't think I have any more questions in the chat. One of our participants says thank you. And Daniel, do you have any more questions?
No, I don't have any more questions. You've answered all the questions very thoroughly. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just add with one note of caution, particularly for young people? When you are there shopping for a car, whether it's individual, independent, or car dealer, it's your money and you're in control of it until you give your money away or sign a loan. So make sure that you are getting the best deal and that either the individual or either of the car dealerships are not taking advantage of you. It's your hard-earned dollars, and you make sure that you're doing your homework. And if they say something that seems kind of off, I've had car dealers who told younger people or people from other countries that they were not allowed to buy a used car. They could only buy a new car. If that seems like something that's like, what? Walk away, just leave. There are so many other places you can buy a car from. It's your money, take control of it.
Okay,
So,
thank you so much.
Thank you for
really
the opportunity.
appreciate you. We really appreciate having you. Do you have a follow-up email that we could so that if any of our participants want to reach out with you later on?
Absolutely. It's real simple. It's just Sue, S-U-E, @cashmd.org.
Okay, thank you. I'll share that out to everybody just in case they have any questions. Thank you so much for coming. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else did too.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I hope you guys enjoyed our guest speaker. We're going to move on to the Kahoot portion and quiz you on what you've learned today. So, Samson, are you trying to? This is a little bit unfair for Samson if he's alone because I know all the answers.
I'm muted. I don't know all the answers, so Samson will
don't?
probably be me.
Okay. So, Sam, do you want to 1v1 Izzy?
If you're talking, we can't hear you.
All right.
Sure. Daniel, I was answering emails during the videos this morning.
You were answering emails.
Miss Jones is emailing me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay. You want to join on too? Can we just do a 3-person?
Sure. Everyone gets a spot on the podium.
All right, cool.
Oof. Maybe I don't. I made this like a little bit ago, so maybe I don't remember.
Okay. How do I host it?
Host.
Okay. I've never done this before.
Really?
No.
Classic.
Classic? Like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Load
All
the
right.
game in, and then you can join on your phone.
Okay. So if you guys can see the pin.
Uh-oh. My bad. I should probably